Okay, so if you're a leader, you've probably felt the pain of an org redesign, right? They can be, well, frustrating. Today, we're going to look at a totally new way of thinking about this. It's an approach that flips that old clunky model completely on its head, and it's all about building organizations that are genuinely adaptive and focused on creating value. So let's just jump right in. Before we even get to the new method, I want you to think about this question for a second. What is the number one mistake that most companies make when they try to redesign themselves? I'm willing to bet you've seen it firsthand, or maybe you've even been part of a redesign that made this exact error. All right, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to start by nailing down that first mistake. Then we'll introduce a new core principle that changes everything. From there, we'll walk through the actual method, first defining the work, then shaping the workforce. And we'll wrap up by looking at why flipping the process like this is just so powerful. Okay, section 1, the first mistake. It's funny. The biggest problem with most redesigns isn't some complex execution detail. Nope, it's all about where you start. And there it is. The single biggest mistake is that we almost always start with structure. You know what I'm talking about? The org chart. We immediately jump to drawing boxes and lines, figuring out who reports to who. But think about it. That's kind of crazy, right? It's like painstakingly designing a super fancy bottle before you have any idea what you're going to put in it. You're focusing on the container, not the content. And that's exactly where it all goes off the rails. So, if starting with the org chart is the mistake, what's the solution? Well, it means we need a completely new core principle. We have to stop designing for static hierarchy and start designing for something much more dynamic, the flow of value. I love this quote because it just perfectly captures the shift we need to make. Organization design is not about drawing structures. It is about engineering how value flows through work. Let that sink in. We're not architects drawing a static blueprint anymore. We're engineers designing a dynamic system. The focus isn't on who reports to whom. It's on how your company actually creates and delivers value. It's a profound difference. Okay, so how do you actually do that? How do you engineer that flow of value? Let's get practical and dive into the method. The first 3 phases are all about the groundwork. It's where we define the work. So here's the entire 6-step process laid out. Now, just take a quick look. What's the most surprising thing you see? For me, it's that structure. The org chart doesn't even show up until phase 5. That's the inversion. That's the whole point. We have a ton of foundational work to do before we even think about boxes and lines. So let's break down those first 3 steps. Everything, and I mean everything, starts here. Phase 1, value intent. Before a single conversation about roles or teams, you have to be absolutely brutally clear about what value you're trying to create and what you're optimizing for. And this is a job for the leadership team. It's about making some really tough calls by answering 3 critical questions. First, where do we get the most bang for our buck? What outcomes deliver disproportionate value? Second, where is adaptability a must-have? And where can we get away with being super efficient? You can't be both everywhere. And third, what are we actually great at? What are the core capabilities that make us, us? I'm telling you, if you don't get these answers right, everything that follows is just rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. Okay, once you've locked in that strategic intent, you can move on to phase 2, which is work decomposition. Now, this is where things get really fascinating. Notice we are still not talking about people's jobs, not yet. We are literally designing the work itself. We're taking it apart, breaking it down into outcomes, tasks, and the skills needed to do them. And this is the perfect place to think about AI and automation. By looking at the work this way, you can clearly see what can be automated, what can be augmented by tech, and what just needs a human being. It's a powerful lens, and you do it all before you even think about job titles. All right, next up is phase 3, decision and governance rewire. And I really want you to lean in for this one because it is absolutely critical. Seriously, this is the phase where most transformations go to die. The quote says it all. If you don't change how decisions are made, nothing changes. Think about it. You can design the most elegant system for how work gets done. But if all the decisions still have to crawl up the same old chain of command, getting stuck in bottlenecks, what have you really changed? Nothing. Your new design will fail. It's that simple. Okay, let's take a breath. We've set our value intent, we've deconstructed the work, and we've rewired how decisions get made. That is a massive foundation. Now, and only now, are we ready to really think about the people. Let's get into the second half of the method, shaping the workforce. So, we're at phase 4, capability and skills architecture. Again, just look how late in the game this comes. We're not throwing skills taxonomies at the wall from day one. We wait until we have that deep, granular understanding of the work itself. And let me be really clear about what this is not. This is not one of those massive, boil-the-ocean skills taxonomy projects that takes 2 years and goes nowhere. No, this is about creating a strategic skills portfolio, a focused map. You're connecting directly back to phase 1 and asking, what are the handful of skills that truly drive our unique value? And then you make choices. What skills need to be deep? What skills can be more fluid and shared? And, just as important, what skills are we going to let decline? And now, finally, after all that foundational work, we get to phase 5. This is what we call structural expression. This is the org chart part. See how different this feels? Structure isn't the starting point anymore. It's an outcome. It's the answer to a much better question. We're not asking, what should our org chart look like? We're asking, what structure is going to best support the flow of value, the work we've designed, and the skills we need? Maybe the answer is a hybrid model. Maybe it's agile teams. Maybe it's fluid talent pools. The point is, whatever structure you land on, it's intentional. It's by design, not by default. And the very last piece of the puzzle is phase 6, technology as an amplifier. And putting it last is so important. Why? Because technology should support your strategy, not become your strategy. We've all seen what happens when you buy the shiny new HR tech platform first, right? You spend the next 2 years trying to twist your organization to fit the tool. This way, you do it the other way around. You create the design, and then you find the technology that will amplify and enable what you've already built. Okay, let's pull back for a second and just recap. Let's talk about the power of inversion and why this method really works where others fail. This comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? On the left, you have the old way. Start with structure, redraw the boxes, and then try to retrofit skills and tech into that box. It's backwards. On the right, you have this new method. We start with value. We design the work, we rewire decisions, then we define skills, shape the structure, and deploy technology. It's the difference between being structure-led and being truly value-led. So to wrap this all up, I want to leave you with a little thought experiment, a sort of litmus test for your own company. Go back and ask your team this. If we woke up tomorrow and our entire HR tech stack was gone, just vanished, would our workforce strategy still make any sense? Because if the answer to that question is no, well, that's a pretty big sign that your organization is being shaped by its technology, not by its strategy. And really, that's the fundamental choice here. Are you going to be the architect of your organization? Or are you going to let your tools and old habits design it for you?